I'm Judy Gaman and welcome to Fireside Chat with Judy Gaman. Tonight I thought I'd sit down with a 19-year-old, someone who was in college, who suddenly got the call that said, hey, you gotta leave, and had to really pick up, leave Indiana and hop on a plane and come home, leaving the car and the apartment and everything just as it was. And you guessed it, it's my son, Walter Gaman. So, Walter, I just want to kind of get the perspective of what did it feel like to kind of have your life disrupted at this age?
You know, it's interesting. I think the most difficult thing is perhaps the move to online classes that we're beginning tomorrow in Indiana. Many schools, including even many high schools, began this past week. As far as actually leaving Indiana, while that was disruptive, because it was at the time of spring break, it didn't feel too weird until we were supposed to go back for spring break. And then it was kind of like, oh, reality's really sunk in and we're really in this for the long haul. But again, the move to online classes probably has been the biggest thing. And while we're beginning it tomorrow, so I can't give a totally in-depth explanation of what's that like, I guess my message to any college students in the same position would simply be, this is another situation where we have to adapt. When we're at school, we're constantly adapting. Whenever we made that transition from high school to college, we had to adapt. There wasn't any ifs or buts about it. If you went to college, then you had to adapt to it. Maybe it took you a little bit, but something you had to do if you were going to be successful. And it's the same thing right now. There's so many things going on around us that it's very easy to get lost in the distractions, to get lost in the mess, and sometimes maybe forget that we're even still students, especially in Indiana where we actually had a 2-week spring break to give the faculty and staff some more time to prepare their online coursework. We can't get lost in those distractions, and we really just have to adapt to the online classes as soon as possible and just get back on the grind.
I think that's great advice. Now, for Walter and I, we were empty nesters. Walter is our last of 10 kids to leave the nest, and it was an interesting thing for us to say, we're empty nesters. Oh no, now we're not. But I'm curious from your perspective, and maybe some of the things you're hearing from your fellow students, what is it like when you've had that kind of freedom, you've gone to college, you're kind of living your life, and then boom, you're back under mom and dad's roof?
Well, in my case, it's quite nice because I'm fortunate to have a very good home life, and I know many of my friends are as well. We're very grateful for that. Some folks not in the same position, of course, and many people maybe were more eager to get out of the house for college. For me personally, I was eager to get out until I'd been there a semester, and I was still enjoying my college life, don't get me wrong, but you missed your parents, you missed your home life a little bit, no doubt, but not everyone's in that same position. So, of course, again, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a very good situation with my home life and with my family, that I'm grateful to be here. I don't know how grateful they are that I'm here, but certainly it's going to be an adventure for all of us. But regardless of the kind of situation that we end up in at home, while it may be weird and while everyone's experiences with regard to that may be much different, it's again just something we got to adapt to.
So I think the message here is adaptation. No matter what, you just have to adapt and adjust. What do you think that students your age can be doing to help others who may be struggling with adapting?
It's a great question. I think the number one thing is to build structure. This is true at any point in college, but especially if you feel as though you're struggling with adapting, maybe it's something as small as adapting to a new friend group, adapting to a new class, on a grander scale, adapting again from the high school to the college level. You have to build structure. You have to build a routine in some way. And of course, this virus outbreak has disrupted many people's routines. It's something we hear very often is, well, my routine was very disrupted, and that's really been the biggest factor for many people in what has changed in their lives. Their routine was disrupted. The fact is, part of adapting is building a new structure. Yeah. Especially with online classes beginning, it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult at first, but we have to build structure. So you can just sit down with a planner, you can sit down with some sticky notes, whatever you use. Sit down with Google Calendar, build yourself a new schedule, build yourself a new routine, and get back into a structure. And don't neglect your health either. If you neglect your health, your entire routine falls apart.
That's really good. Now, Walter actually works at Orangetheory in Indiana, in Bloomington, when he's not in classes. And so, Walter, for our viewers, tell them some of the things that your Orangetheory people have been doing. I think it's quite interesting.
Yes, very fascinating. We have a tremendous community up in Bloomington, Indiana, in our Orangetheory group. Tremendous community there at the studio, and so, of course, the studio had to close down, as all gyms have had to in America during this time, and so our amazing coaches there have been doing live streams every single day, where the Orangetheory corporate has designed these templates basically for at-home workouts for people, where they can use household objects and even just their body weight to create great workouts for people at home. And so our coaches have been doing live streams where they're kind of taking all the members through this workout, and many people are joining into that and are having a great time with that. It's not the same, of course, we all long for those Orangetheory classes, but it's nevertheless a great thing for us to do to keep ourselves healthy. And also, our members always chiming in on Facebook and keeping in touch with each other and helping motivate each other through these times to make sure we don't neglect our health and we can build a routine.
Now, Walter, one thing that is interesting about our relationship is we talk a lot. We've always been a family that talks and communicates, and we actually just had a big Zoom meeting with our kids and even some relatives in Canada, and we all kind of got in the same Zoom room and had such a great time. But what is something you can tell parents? I know you can't be in the heads of everyone else your age, but you may have some insight for those parents that don't communicate, or maybe it's not their fault, maybe their 18, 19, 20-year-old doesn't communicate back, or even 16. What do you think would be helpful on the parent side to get those kids to talk and to open up during this time?
That's a very tough question. Since I'm not a parent myself, I don't know how great of an answer I can give to that, but I will say you can't expect your kid to talk to you if you don't talk to them, right? I call her every single day when I'm at school. We have long conversations because that's, again, the kind of relationship we have built over time. But also don't expect your kid to immediately respond well whenever you start talking to them more often. I think the biggest thing is just to keep in contact, help them understand that you care about what is going on in their life. Ask them how their day was, and genuinely ask them how their day was, not just the small talk that we often maybe heard whenever we were younger from our parents. Be genuinely interested in how the day was, how they're adapting, perhaps if they're college students at home, how they're adapting to the online class structure. Have they built a routine? What's changed with them?
But don't hound them, right?
Of course.
If you just pepper them with questions constantly, I think maybe you'll get met with back off.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a dichotomy, there's a balance, but if you don't communicate with your kid genuinely and often, then there's a balance to be found, and I'm confident that that balance can be found with time. And be patient, as always, with everything.
That's great. Do you have any actual advice for kids your age that you just want to throw out there, that you've thought of during this, that maybe you can share in your infinite 19 years of wisdom?
The one thing I would say is, if you're not religious, if you're not spiritual, that's great. Everyone's on their own journey. But find something that allows you to just center yourself, whether for you that's meditation, for you that's prayer. Find something that really just allows you to just connect with yourself and help open your mind to the world around you. It's difficult whenever we can't go outside and explore in nature. Perhaps we can, as long as you're keeping 6 feet apart from anyone you're with, but just make sure you have some opportunity to connect with something that's not just yourself.
Get out of your head, kind of.
Exactly. Get out of your head a little bit and just really find time to relax, find time to do things that you enjoy doing. Don't get too bogged down with the schoolwork, as we never should. School, of course, should be a priority for anybody who's serious about it, but find time for yourself, find time for nature, find time for your family. Do things that make you happy too.
Now, outside of school, work and school books, you're reading something. So what does a 19-year-old read these days? Outside of my book, thank you for reading my book. But what other books are you reading?
I'm reading a philosophical book. I'm reading a theological book. Specifically, that one is about the reconciliation of science and faith, and I'm very much enjoying that one. I'm also reading a book by a former U.S. Olympian and NFL and CFL player that I'm enjoying quite a bit.
Johnny Quinn's book.
Johnny Quinn.
Yeah, he's terrific. We've had him on our podcast.
Yes, he's excellent.
Yeah.
Those are the main books I'm reading, on top of her new book, which is wonderful.
Thank you. That's Love, Life, and Lucille. Thank you so much for thinking it's wonderful. Of course, you're my child, so you have to think it's wonderful, and you're in it. So,
yes.
Well, I think the message here tonight is really about adaptation. How do we adapt to our new life? Whether you're 40, 50, or whether you're 16, 17, 18, 19, we all have to learn how to adapt. So figure out how you can help others in your life adapt, because we're all in this together, and that's just the way I see it.